Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kinda hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarasinski, and today I'm joined by two people who seem to enjoy movies, depending on the movie.
No, never.
Never, occasionally.
Don't enjoy them at all.
Never, no. That don't love movies.
I call them poovies.
Oh, scroovies. Huh?
Okay.
More like novies.
Movies. Gosh, we're going to stop that part right now. But I'm joined today with Brennan Klein and Tim Brayton, here today because of Patreon supporter Harold Bleacher, to unearth the depths of our anger, our rage, our sadness, our deepest sadnesses with our top 5 most traumatic movies. I'm a little nervous.
That'd be exciting. I look forward to ripping off these scabs, crying in front of you, treating you both as my collective therapist. It's going to be good times.
This is very important. And also during the research for this, I have discovered that I might be a sociopath. So we'll see how that goes. We'll explore that.
Interesting.
I'm very, very excited to hear more about this.
I am too. And I think we all probably harness different elements that probably trigger our trauma. I was trying to think about it. I'm like, are there any themes here? And for me, it's mostly like tragic love, dementia, animal death, valor, drowning, selfless acts. Just all of those. Those will get me there. So
that's a lot of themes.
It's a lot.
That doesn't feel like a through line. That just sounds like you described the 5 items individually on your list.
You know what?
They're all Titanic.
It's just the top 5 Titanic moments.
I was going to say, is one of your top 5 traumatic moments the time that I made you cry about Titanic on the air?
That is something I'm hoping doesn't happen today. Although I am in like a little bit of a spurt of teariness. Like I just keep seeing things everywhere around me that make me cry. So I was like, if there's one thing I'm not going to let happen today, it's don't let Tim make you cry. But I will never play that episode back ever again because
I will say this. It is not my goal to make you cry. It is my goal to make you deeply uncomfortable by describing homosexual sex acts.
Oh,
but it's never ever my goal to make you feel sad. That is, I think, mean.
And I love all of that too. You can, there's many ways that you can make me cry. It's my goal not to today, but man, as I was putting this list together, there's going to be some tough spots in here. So we'll see. But before we get there, it's been a week. Is there anything?
It's been more than a week for some of us. Your last time recording was just you and quote unquote Rob.
Supposedly.
But we know the advances in AI that have been made these days. I don't know that I believe it.
It's hard to say.
I wouldn't believe that Carrie would be able to operate an AI, but your impression's getting really good, Carrie.
Yes.
The practice is paying off.
This is true. I did just get back from a 7-day trip in Las Vegas, which is trauma in and of itself, which was about 6.5 days too long. Vegas is not for me. And I did get into a nice conversation about AI with a man driving like an Uber driver driving. I was going to say a man driving
the worst
car.
Kind of conversation.
You know what? It didn't go well.
Did you talk about Bitcoin too?
We didn't get there because I was kind of like, I'm going to look up this website for you because it'll write everything for you. It was a very, very long conversation, but I don't know if you guys have ever been to Vegas. Have you guys been there?
One time, and that is the only time I will ever be.
Yes, I've been a couple times, and I wish it was less. Yeah,
I was there in July.
Oh, that is a mistake.
It was, yes, correct. It was. I learned there's a commonplace. You may be familiar with this phrase, Brennan, but I think it's a very Midwestern thing to say. So I know you're familiar with it, Carrie. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. Which is what our way of saying, well, it's 85 degrees, but it feels like death because the air is so sticky and wet. And I learned something important in Las Vegas. It can be the heat.
It is the heat.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when there's enough heat, it does not have to be humid for it to feel like your body is dying.
Oh, and actually, our phrase on this side of the country is actually the opposite. It's usually, oh, but it's a dry heat. But no, Las Vegas is just being in an oven and there's no escaping it.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Worst place I've ever been.
I
Apologies to all the Las Vegas listeners, but you need to move because your town sucks.
You need to
And
go.
you probably suck for living there.
You know what? I feel worse for having been there. And I'm telling you right now, worst case scenario for a Midwesterner. So walking down the street, I got approached. I mean, I think I probably have a target on myself that just looks like I want to. Looks like I want to engage. Because I do. Like usually I want to engage, but it was like nonstop walking down the street. So it was just like, oh, ma'am, can I talk to you about this eye cream? And I'm like, it starts off and I was like, oh, you know what? It is what it is. I've tried things. Like it would be 20-minute conversations all the way walking down the road.
Carrie.
I know.
Good God.
Okay, but I'm going to tell you that at one point I was like, I can't take this anymore. And someone was like, hey, I love your pants. Like what kind of pants are you wearing? And I was like, you know what, Carrie, don't respond. Like, don't respond to the pants. But then she went for the double ask. She's like, your pants. What kind of pants are you wearing? Which caused this whole other level of fluster. Because I'm like, now she knows that I ignored her. And now I'm going to have to engage because it was a double ask. So I turn around. I end up slipping on my thing. I was like, my pants are just, they were on sale. They were Lululemon, but they were on sale. I would never buy full price. And then I fall, go down. My sunglasses go flying. Now I'm laying on the floor in the middle of the mall, all because this woman wouldn't leave me alone about my pants. And I was just like.
So here'd be the most ironic thing. When you fell.
Yes.
Did you tear your pants?
No, they were stretchy. They were stretchy.
Oh, that would have been really funny if you had.
They were
though.
on sale, Lululemons. But why am I telling her the brand of my pants? She's like, well, I'm wearing the same brand of pants. And I was like, well, this is cool. Like, it's really cool that we're wearing the same
And
pants.
are you on the ground trying to retrieve yourself from the fall as she's saying this?
And I'm trying to get my sunglasses because I only had one pair. And I was just like, oh, I'm probably going to break them. And I just was like, I got up and I was just like, I hate this place. I was like, I hate it so much. Like, leave me alone. I don't know. It feels like, I don't know how people survive there. I was just exhausted by the time I got home.
The story I hoped you were going to tell, my mother, whose first visit to Vegas was also my first visit to Vegas, they got there like 2 days before I did. And so they got to quote unquote enjoy the strip more than I ever got to. And she continues to this day, whenever Vegas comes up in conversation, talks about all the people who would like try to interrupt you as you were walking down the street at night by thrusting their fists in front of you, holding like basically a handful of cards, all of which were cards with little like business cards with naked ladies on them. Inviting you to come to the various strip shows or possibly brothels. And this is the thing that my mother finds to be quintessentially Vegas, is that they're just trying to like sell you naked ladies on the street.
Very, very much. When I was like 12 and I was there, they kept handing them to me and I kind of made a little collection. I was just like, oh, I got all these cards. They're like Pokemon.
Yeah, they're like Garbage Pail Kids. Yeah, I got those too.
Garbage Pail Kids is probably more on point for Vegas.
Probably.
I got those too. But now it's like, it's almost like offensive because they're starting to.
Almost offensive to have people throwing naked lady cards at you on the street.
Not that part. But I mean, now people are approaching me for different reasons. So they're like, oh, this guy's in like these little chappies. I don't even know what a chappie is. There's no.
It's a robot from South
damn
Africa.
Wait, what is it? Because there was no butt in his pants, or there was no
Those are just chaps.
chaps. Okay, so they're just wearing these little chappers around, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna breeze by. But I also, again, you have to do the smile because you're like,
You don't.
You don't
though.
have to smile at the men whose asses are hanging out, Carrie.
but just like a side
In fact,
smile.
you
not like
probably shouldn't.
Well, I did. Because I just felt rude. They were asking me some questions, and then they're like, "Oh, well,
We're like, where'd you get your pants? Because we need some.
we'd like to borrow your pants." They're like, "Oh, well, we've got the mom discount," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, well, I could use that." It's like a small talk instinct where you're like, "I can't."
I feel
help
like
it.
even if you're at a straight up gay bar, you don't talk to the ones who have their asses hanging out. You just engage in nonverbal
It's
communication.
hard though because it's daytime. It's like noon. So you're like, well, nothing can go wrong at noon. So you're like, well, I guess I'll engage. So I was like, well, I guess I'll be back, like jokingly. And they're like, oh, well, you get a discount. I was like, well, what's the discount? But it's like a small talk instinct that you just can't stop. I don't want to go to this place that you're at. Obviously, I'm with my kids. They're like right there. And I'm like, oh, gosh. And so I was like, well, what's the discount? Because I do like a good deal. And they're like, 25% off, but for you, it'll be like 40% off. And I was like, wow. I was like, well, I'll keep you posted.
40% off what?
I don't know. I was just like,
Pants.
pants.
I mean, it sounds like.
It's just like the whole time. It's just like, I think I have a sign on me that just, again, it just says like, please engage. And it's just, I'm just exhausted. So I'm never going back to Vegas. I decided it's like, I just can't go back. It's not meant for me. I feel worse for having been there. So
I will say one thing in defense of Las Vegas. I have not personally had this experience because I'm poor, but when they were doing the like rebrand from Vegas Pit of Sin to Vegas Take Your Family back in the late 90s, part of that process was basically they just like bought Michelin star quality restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like, okay, well, how about we just like spend all the money in the entire world to bring great chefs and like distribute them one per hotel. So the Strip is actually like one of the most concentrated zones of high-end restaurant food in the United States, weirdly. And that would be the thing that if I ever go back to Vegas, it would be for that reason.
Yeah.
Also a great Thai restaurant way off the Strip, like a mile off the Strip, but a phenomenal Thai restaurant. Best Thai food I've ever had.
Yeah, there's that. They do have some good shows too. Like my best Vegas trip was exactly half a day, which was your recommended allowance, Carrie. I drove out to see Evil Dead the musical. We sat in the splash zone where you get all covered in blood, and it was a great time. And then we went home. But that is a California privilege that we get to do that.
yeah, it's not that far.
Yeah, but I would say you have a beautiful soul, Carrie. Hearing your stories, that's all I can think about. But that's how you can get stepped on so much, is that beauty is weak.
No, I feel weak.
But I do feel the opposite of you. Like I've spent my life training to not talk to people. And my triumph actually came a couple weeks ago before I moved. In my old apartment, there was a blackout. And somebody came and knocked on my door, and I was like, "Oh, is it like the power company or something?" So I didn't open the door, but it was really hot because the electricity was out. So the door was open, and I just had the like locked metal grate that lets air through it. And so I was just kind of standing on the other side, and I was like, "Hello," because I couldn't see anybody. The sun was setting; they were silhouetted, and it turned out it was just Mormons who were trying to, teach me about the God. But anyway, at the end, I was just like, no, I'm not interested. And also there's a power outage and people might shoot you if you show up at their doors just in the dark and knocking really loudly. So maybe don't do that. And they were like, oh, okay, no worries. We'll come back around later. What did you say your name was again? And I was like, ooh, classic trap. So my response was just, I didn't. And then they left.
See, I would have already handed out my social security number, probably like signed up for some sort of like monthly newsletter. It's just, I think I need to find a balance between that because again, it's not great on the other end either. You're going to end up in some traumatic potentially situations.
Ooh,
much like today's
Speaking of
episode.
trauma, Carrie.
Speaking
Do
of,
we have movies to talk about?
we do. In fact, we have 5 of them today.
With potentially 15 of them.
Potentially 15. Maybe we'll have some overlap. Again, I don't think that we will. I won't.
I have
Unlikely.
I have enormous faith, Carrie, that you and I are going to overlap on one.
All right.
Ooh.
All right. Well, that sounds good. And I just want to let you know, I'm more interested today, a little less about what happens in the movie, a little less about who's in it. I don't care about who directed it. I don't care about anything. I want to know about your specific trauma. Like what caused the trauma? What caused that sort of like deep core memory of grief? Maybe
Generally, for me, it's the screenplay and the director who caused it.
That's fair. But I want to know those details. So I kind of want to know where the pain lies. In my case, have refused to ever watch any of these ever again because the grief is so deep. But I will kick it to you, Brennan, first. Top 5 most traumatic movies. What sort of criteria did you have going into this?
Okay, so I was thinking about it. I was trying to think of different ways that one could be traumatized. There's shock, there's sadness. Those are the big ones. And I was just kind of approaching that through there. And I came up with a pretty long list. And I was like, how the hell am I going to cut this down? And the criteria that I found that worked for me a lot in helping narrow it down was, did it stick with me for more than a day? Mm-hmm. So once I went to bed and woke up the next morning, was I still thinking about the emotional impact of this scene or this movie or this experience? Because I cry at movies all the time. But if I watch Titanic and I cry or whatever, the next day, I am fine. I'm not thinking about it again. So that was my criteria that I used.
Okay, I'm getting the sociopath vibes that you're talking about now. That makes sense based on your criteria. Tim, similar? Because mine is a little bit similar to Brennan's, only it's a much longer than one day. But do you have similar criteria, or where do you land?
I mean, this one's tough for me. Trauma is not a little word to use. So I'm looking for things here that are really just burying their eggs in my brain. And then those eggs hatch and they feed on the succulent tissue of my brain, turning me into an insectified zombie. So I'm looking for films that really latched onto me and hung there, and that I have strong memories of weeks, days, months later. That's the wrong order of time, of course, but definitely it's not about feeling sad. I mean, I can go and I can watch Toy Story 3, and reliably, every time I watch Toy Story 3, I'm just wet. My face is just soaked in tears. But then I go have, a thing of cheese crackers, and I'm fine. These are things that really just kind of linger and linger and linger. The other sort of trick for me here is this is not something that I feel anymore. And this is my version of I'm a sociopath. I just don't have that kind of response to really upsetting imagery in films. I watch it and I'm like, well, that was a film and I have experienced it, and now I will move on with my life. And maybe half hour later I'm sort of in another zone. So I can watch something butchering an animal in an Italian horror movie. And is it queasy making? Absolutely. Do I dwell on it? No, not really. So all of mine really come from childhood, with one pseudo exception. And I will say I did, after a great deal of consideration, I had 2 versions of this list and I committed to one at the last minute. I decided I had to bracket out documentaries about the Holocaust as their own thing that is not in the purview of this list. Because there are multiple Holocaust documentaries that have done that to me, but it's also the Holocaust is not about my personal trauma, and the trauma is that civilization broke in the 1940s. Mm-hmm. So I decided I couldn't put those on this list, even though certainly the films as an adult that have gotten to me the most and the most upsetting are that kind of film.
Excellent. And also, in my defense, I didn't when my movies lasted a day, they continued to last. These are ones that did stick around and that I do think about, probably once a month until the end of time.
Okay.
But that was my bare minimum rule of thumb criteria of the next day, was it still rattling me?
That's fair, because I have definitely, there's a spectrum here where it's I walked away and was heartbroken and sick and maybe vomited in the bathroom, something like that. That's at the lowest level. But then there's the ones where it's well, I'll get there. But
even just thinking about it now makes you have to go vomit in the bathroom.
Yeah. Like even right now I feel a little teary, which isn't good. This isn't good.
Well, again, like I made you start bawling about Titanic, a movie that at that point you had not seen in like 20 years.
And I still haven't. And I'll get to a story. I had another incident with one of these movies just in Vegas. And I had an episode when I was in Vegas over one of these movies. And I'm just like, I have issues. So I'm like, I'm going to have to resolve this later. But for me, there had to be like true grief, like that feeling of like, oh, this is lingering with me for a long period of time. I still think about it when I hear music or people talk about it, or where like there's clips of it, or if I see it, like I want nothing to do with it, even though I loved it. But like I still want nothing to do with it. And that applies just across the board for all of mine. A couple of mine aren't. No, it's mostly sad tragedy. No, looking through, it's mostly sad. One's not, and I'm excited to tell you the story about it, but we'll get there when we do. And it is at the top of the list of tragedy. So anyway, let's just jump in. And again, don't forget the criteria. I want to hear how you wept. I want to know like how much snot there was. I want to know the exact feelings that you had when you watched it. So Brennan, do you want to kick us off with your number 5?
Yes, I do. But here's the thing. Most of mine are not sad ones, which is why I kind of felt like I was a sociopath. Because like I said, I cry a lot in a lot of movies. Well, no, I don't cry a lot, but I cry frequently at a lot of movies. But I don't feel like any sad movie is really like still stuck in my gut like a knife, and you can still twist it and kind of feel that. And that might be because of, yeah.
I will say 3 of my 5 are not sad.
What?
Okay, yeah, I'm curious. Well, my number 5, Carrie, like you said, the ones on your list are ones that you also really love. 4 of mine are also that. This one is not. It is the 2008 film, the Adam Sandler masterpiece, You Don't Mess with the Zohan. The reason this movie traumatized me is that this was
fucking terrible.
Yeah, this was the first cinema experience that I had where I realized that movies can be truly wretched and unrepentantly awful. This movie, it's about Adam Sandler plays the Zohan, an Israeli Defense Forces counter-terrorist soldier or assassin guy who moves to the U.S. to become a hairstylist. It's the triumphant reunion of him and I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry director Dennis Dugan. And I watched this on rental DVD with my dad, and both of us were hating it. But each of us thought that the other person wanted to watch it, so we both stuck it out because we didn't check in with each other. And it just we both were just basically like white knuckling the seat, just trying to make it through this movie. It caused me physical pain to watch You Don't Mess with the Zohan because of how much I hated the experience of sitting through it.
Especially with your dad. That's the other element. I will get there, but like that element of watching a movie that you don't want to be watching, or something that's just so emotional, like whatever the trigger is, whatever the thing is, but then having to sit through it with somebody else is like amplified. Because now you're like, what are they thinking? Like they have to think this is bad, but no one wants to call it. Like, what if they're loving it? Maybe I do need to sit here through this. Like, it makes it so much worse. Like if you than watching it just alone.
Yeah, really, the feeling of being trapped with the Zohan was really you're right. That was it.
Yeah, no, it is a brutally bad movie. And I can certainly see like that sort of ripping away of innocence where it's like, oh, movies can be bad. That is a bad feeling to have. And I don't even remember when I felt that for the first time, but it's not good. And I feel like that would have been a worthwhile number 1 just on that account. Because like, what's worse than realizing that an art form can suck? But I'm curious, do you remember how old you were when you saw this?
I mean, it would have been 08 or later, probably 09. So I would have been probably a freshman in high school. So I had seen mediocre movies, but this was the first one that caused me active pain to see. And also, gotcha. I came to loving movies a little late, so this would have still been early in my kind of cinema viewing history beyond just watching The Little Mermaid 800 times.
Sure.
All right, Tim, you've seen this, haven't you?
What's that?
Have you seen this?
I've seen this. I've reviewed it. It's no good.
Oh, it's bad. It's real bad.
It's bad. It's an Adam Sandler movie where he plays a hairdresser. Like, where is the room for it to be good?
It's true. It's true.
And it was in one of his whatever the opposite of a bronze period is. He's had those long periods of crap. Like, it was 2008 was smack dab in the middle of one of the big ones, and then once he joined Netflix in like the mid 2010s was also a big one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, I think it's easier to target the moments that Adam Sandler is briefly making more than one good film or more than one adequate film at a time than when he's making several bad ones at a time. But that's me. I know people like Adam Sandler more than I do.
They must. They clearly watch him on Netflix for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah.
This is true. All right, Tim, are we going to line up with your number 5 and my number 1?
Doubt that.
Okay.
So I will top you, Brennan, with you like 4 of your movies and you don't like one of them. I haven't seen my 5th movie, which is part of the reason I have it at number 5. One Day I Shall. I own it. I own the Blu-ray of this film. So here is my story of what experience I had interfacing with this film in some capacity. So it is the late 1980s. It is specifically, if I'm not mistaken, 1988. And I am a small child. I would be 6 at this point. And we, the family, are going to go see what looks like a fun, exciting, new, wacky comedy about the mismatched twins who are Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. And I don't really understand how movies work at this point in time. I'm 6. So we get into the theater, the lights go down, and up comes footage of a sonogram. Is that what pregnant women
Ultrasound.
get?
Ultrasound.
Well, no, it wasn't an ultrasound though. It wasn't like the imagery. It was the like.
Was there like a probe going up something?
No. It's like you're seeing like an oscilloscope like making the beeping noise, and a woman is being like, it's some sort of prenatal test, but we don't actually see footage.
Okay, gotcha.
Yet. We see footage by the end of the trailer.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here. I'm like, well, I know that this movie is about 2 twin brothers. Maybe I'm watching their pregnant mother realizing she has twins. I don't know. And as this continues developing, it becomes clear that there is something horrible, and that the pregnancy in some capacity involves a creature, a monster dwelling in this woman's womb. And I'm fucking confused as hell because I'm here to see Danny DeVito being the short version of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know what's going on. Turns out I have just sat through the teaser trailer for 1989's The Fly 2. And again, didn't really comprehend that trailers, and this was not the first time I'd seen a movie in theaters, but didn't really comprehend that trailers happened, and like you see like little 2-minute short films about other movies before you see the real movie. Uh-huh. I was just very confused. I was like, I thought this was going to be a funny movie. This looks like a scary movie. Like, are the twins monsters? What's going on here? What the hell is happening? And it clearly weirded me out and rattled me enough that here we are, 35 years later, and I still like remember that experience. And again, without benefit of having seen The Fly 2.
And do you feel like do you feel like you have a little bit of that resistance to watching it because you were so scared when you were so little?
Oh no, I'm resistant to watching it because nobody in the entire world thinks it's good.
Oh, we'll see.
I think it's not terrible, if that helps.
that helps a little bit. Thank you.
Oh You're welcome. Gosh. I want to watch it.
At some point, I'm going to do a marathon of all of the Fly movies. Again, I own the fancy Scream Factory 5 movie Fly box set. So,
yeah, I highly recommend that marathon. I did that a couple of years ago. It is such a delight. It's the worst of them, but I think I gave it like a 6 out of 10. Like it's still a goopy 80s, late 80s horror movie, which is cool. A fun thing to be.
It's the only one. There was the trilogy in the 50s and the 2 films in the 80s. It's the only Fly movie I haven't seen. So I feel like it's a major lapse for 2 reasons, but clearly bothered me as a child. So there we go. Traumatic experience. The trailer for The Fly 2.
All right. Unexpected pick for sure. All right. I'm going to jump into my number 5, and I think it's probably not very good. I don't know, but when you were talking about hitting in those sweet spots of age, I think actually Now that I say that, I was actually pretty old. I was pretty old when I saw this. But I don't know what it is about airplane travel and flights. Maybe it's the possibility that my plane could crash. Maybe it's like, I don't even know, but I've had more than one traumatic situation on a plane. I told you about when I saw The Father and then had to hide in the bathroom from the flight attendant because I was crying.
I feel like you've told at least 3 different stories about watching pornographic films on planes. So I feel like any one of those could count as well.
That's true. Oh gosh, I forgot about all those for this list. Those were really bad. Oh my gosh. So, but this one is my like first memory, I guess, of having a breakdown on a plane. So I was flying alone. I think maybe I was going through a breakup, maybe like a pre-Rob transition breakup or something like that. I don't think the breakup was going well. I think I was flying alone. And anyway, I started watching this movie. No idea what to expect, but I knew it had Will Smith. It had Rosario Dawson, who I actually didn't know at the time, but she's lovely. And I was like, what is this movie? It looks pretty good. So we go in there, and basically it's a movie about Will Smith like saving a bunch of people that are dying. And this is the movie 7 Pounds. And this is my selfless act movie. Like, this is awful. And it turns into a love story. I don't know what happens, but all of a sudden I'm just like openly weeping and I'm sort of like breathing weirdly. And then there's this older woman next to me who starts patting my knee because I'm clearly not okay, because it's not even like a quiet cry. It's like I don't even know how to cry when I'm not crying, but it's like, I was like heavy breathing, and then my face started to like have a reaction. Sometimes I have like elevation reactions in like my feet and my body. So my face starts to swell, and now my face is like doubled in size. My eyes are like completely swollen shut. I don't even know what happened. The ending of it was so tragic, so sad. And again, the whole idea of like, somebody has to like sacrifice themselves for somebody else because you care more. It's just a worst case scenario for me. Worst case. So never watch this movie. It's probably terrible, but it's stuck with me ever since I saw it.
I'll vouch that it's terrible and a little traumatizing. Remind me, Carrie, when did you and Rob get together?
Oh gosh, it was 2008. But there was like a tight transition between the two. Very tight.
That's going to be like, I feel like I might have already known you by the time this movie came out. And I met you via Rob.
I think you did. It was a very slim transition between one and the other. But I think this one might have caught me, I don't know.
Right in that window.
Right in that sweet spot of trauma. And it stuck with me ever since. And I thought, I'll just never watch this ever again. And it hit me. It was hard. Rosario Dawson was awesome. Everybody's dying. It was so good. So bad. All in one. So this is 7 Pounds. That's my number 5. It's only going to get more traumatic from here. But Brennan, at your number 4, I think you have one that might be on my list. Maybe?
Oh, do you?
Possibly. What's your number 4?
Well, my number 4 is the 2018 Netflix original, The Perfection. Is that on your list?
No, it's not that. Mine's so much more traumatic than that. Tell us about that.
So The Perfection is a movie that has some twists and turns. I would say it has 3 distinct acts to it. Have either of you seen it?
I have not. I need to.
I might have. Is this the one where there's a gal who's a cellist?
Yes.
Yeah, this was so traumatizing.
Yes. Okay. So I would say, I don't want to get into spoiler territory of the second 2/3 of the movie, but I don't have to. Because this movie, it stars Allison Williams and Logan Browning as 2 competing cellists. They are rivals. They meet in Shanghai and they end up having a lesbian tryst. But you're getting this setup of that there's this kind of weird disease that's kind of going around at the time. And they decide not to go back to the U.S. immediately. They decide to kind of go on a bus tour on their own in Shanghai.
I just want to interrupt before we go too far. I know, Brennan, that you're gay, but lesbianism's not a disease. Life choice.
Good to know. I'll have to take that under consideration.
Update your priors.
No, but there's this. This is spoilers for the first act. So I don't know. Skip if you want. But basically, Allison Williams, I believe. Actually, I don't remember which one it is.
It's Allison Williams, I think.
It is. Whatever. But one of them starts to throw up on the bus, and then there's maggots in her vomit.
Isn't that the worst thing you've ever seen? That is like the worst scene ever in a movie. It's disgusting.
Well, here's the thing. Because, there's that, but then she starts to be like, there are bugs inside me. And then you see bugs like underneath her skin kind of wriggling around. And it ends up being at a point where it's like, she has to like cut off her hand. But there's it's just this kind of increasing tension of there are bugs inside me and what the fuck do I do about it? And they're becoming more and more visible. And it's just, it was overpowering me as an experience, because like I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I'm a bit of a just like not very into the many ways that the human body can fail us. Body horror that is specifically disease horror in that kind of way, or infection horror or whatever, does get under my skin, just like the maggots.
So gross.
But anyway, this movie has two distinct turns, and I'm really glad it took the first one, because I don't think I would have finished it otherwise, because I was too overwhelmed by that sequence, because it was great. It was really well done, and I highly recommend the movie. It is a roller coaster ride.
It is.
Like, that is just the beginning. But it really affected me.
Yeah, I will say body horror in general is sometimes just ooey gooey, sometimes actually disturbing to me. I have things in my GI system that aren't supposed to be there, particularly living things. That is to me like absolutely one of the most like pronounced triggers for me to just feel like a kind of remarkable amount of disgust. So vomiting maggots would really get to me.
Wait, what's in your GI that's not supposed to be there?
No, not mine specifically. Like in general, like things being, you swallow things that you aren't supposed to. Things are rattling around in your stomach or your intestines or whatnot. Like, that is to me the grossest possible form of body horror.
Interesting.
Yes, well, maybe you could follow the route that I did and have some relief that is not the entire movie.
I have a suspicion I can guess what the first twist might be, but I need to see this movie. So.
Yeah, even if you can guess the first twist, that's not the point. It is like there is a lot going on in that movie.
Oh no, and I'm not someone who gives a shit about guessing twists or not. So
yeah. But anyway. That I just think about all the time, and it's very upsetting.
That has stuck weirdly. That one has stuck with me too. I think it's put in a place of like, just try not to think about it. Like, it's a different kind of trauma for me, but it absolutely was one.
It's buried trauma.
Yeah. It's what?
Buried trauma.
Oh, buried trauma. Yes, exactly. I vaulted it away. But yeah, that one, it gets worse from there. There's so many other things that happen that I was like, it stuck with me more than once. Rob and I have been like, what was the name of that movie with the cello and the maggots and the feet and like all of that stuff? And then we were like, oh yeah, we look it up, and that's what it is. So I recommend it to him. I think you might actually like it. It's pretty good.
I need to see it. It's one of the handful of Netflix originals that I'm actually like curious about seeing, because I think I would like it.
Yeah,
so.
That's The Imperfection, right?
The perfection.
The perfection.
Yeah, it's a distinct possibility that you would like it. It's also got a very good cello duet in it.
It does.
I do like cello duets.
It does. Well, awesome. All right, Tim, give us your number 4 that might be on my list too.
So my number 4, I have picked in honor of it being the most recent viewing experience I have had, that I responded to in such a visceral way that I was not anxious to revisit it. Basically, like the last time I would actually say a movie traumatized me in some sense, right? Like, I was bothered enough to be like, I don't want to watch that again. Because that's, again, not an experience I have very often. So in this capacity, I think I've talked about this movie before. I have revisited it multiple times, actually, and have found, that wasn't so bad as all that, because I used to be a fragile flower, and now I am a coarse, emotionally calloused sociopath, as we were discussed. But this experience happened to me in the year 2000, which is how long ago it's been since I've actually had that level of like revulsion to a movie. And that was the first time when as a freshman in college, I watched David Fincher's Seven.
Oh.
95. One of the quintessential mainstream gore films of the 1990s. Obviously, the hook here is that people are being killed according to the 7 deadly sins. And it was, I think, as it is for most of us, gluttony I saw it and I was like, fuck off. That is gross.
Oh, gluttony
I don't
didn't
want this
bother
movie
me.
anymore.
Gluttony didn't bother me.
Oh, interesting.
I'm trying to think which one did get me the most. Actually, none of them. I don't find that movie traumatizing at all. I've seen it a million times, and I'd watch it like tomorrow. I'd watch it right now if it was on. I love that movie.
I congratulate your stomach.
Yeah.
Again, I've watched it twice since then, and neither time did I have anything resembling that kind of response. But boy, it rattled me hard when I saw it as an 18-year-old, and it took me a decade or more to finally watch it. I think I watched it a second time because of a fundraiser. Actually, one of those ACS fundraisers they run. And it was it's fine. It's gross. It's a super gross movie, really good gory makeup effects, but it was the last time that I had that kind of intense response to a movie.
So for Brennan, it's so interesting. For me, I'm pulling out your triggers. I've already listed mine. For you, it's somebody that's nude and a bit overweight, and then for Brennan, it's bugs under the skin. These are your triggers.
I think that's an uncharitable reading of mine. It's anyone who's nude. That one just happened to be overweight.
Fair. Noted.
But also, like, they're dying via gluttony, so wouldn't that kind of go with your kind of GI horror?
It goes with the GI horror thing, yeah.
GI horror. Yeah, that's what it is. You're really
and to be clear, not the only murder in Seven that got to me. I think it might even be the first one we see, and that might be why it stands out more to me.
Maybe. That IBS will get you every time. I want to watch that movie now that you just brought it up. I want to see it later tonight. That's my plan for later.
Thank you for trivializing my trauma. Sorry.
Your trauma is your personal thing. I'm sure some that I will get to, you will say are just fine. Actually, my next one, in fact, I think you'll probably say walk in the park. Not a problem.
I think I won't, because I want to respect your experiences as a person, Carrie. I don't want you to feel diminished and embarrassed.
And how the tables have turned. The tables have turned. This next one for me, I had a hard time putting on here because at the core, I'm really stubborn. And I didn't want to give the satisfaction of this Patreon supporter knowing that somehow, I don't know, somehow I felt like I lost a competition by being so devastated by this movie. So when I went into it, I knew it was going to be bad, mentally prepared. And I was like, don't let it get to you, Carrie. Don't let it get to you. And I still wanted to barf. Like through the whole movie, I was sick. I was like, don't cry. You'll lose. If you cry, you've lost this battle. And then I was just like weeping and I couldn't fall asleep and I was puffy and I was sick and I was just like, this stupid movie. And frickin' Gavin McDowell giving us Grave of the Fireflies from 1988. You bastard. No, just kidding. I don't even know. It was so awful. It was so awful. It's for those who haven't seen it or heard me talk about it after that episode. It's a young boy. This is an anime movie. So I was like, it's not even gonna get me. It's just a cartoon. It's this young boy, a little girl. They're struggling to survive during World War II. And they don't have a lot of food. And they don't have a home. And
what happened to their home, Carrie?
Their home is gone.
What happened to their home?
I don't want to talk about it. Their home was bombed. But then it gets so much worse from there because it's the fallout from the bombs, and it's so the worst, most grueling thing
It's
I've
a
ever
cartoon
seen.
about which is going to kill them first, starvation or radiation.
Or
poisoning.
radiation. And the whole time I was just like, Carrie, harness your rage. Like if I can get to like a rage space, I was like, this isn't going to get you. Like, stay mad, Carrie, stay mad. And then it was just like, no, I just like the holding on was almost worse. Cause then by the end I was just sort of like a liquid puddle of goo in my bed, which wasn't great. So never watch this movie. Grave of the Fireflies. Some people like it, probably like Tim.
Mm-hmm.
But it is one of the worst things, one of the best worst things I've probably ever seen. Ultimately, the most traumatizing.
I will say I ticked around this one for this list. Ultimately, I think that it is the quintessence of, boy, did this movie make me feel sad on levels that I didn't know I could feel sad without quite crossing that that blinding white line between I'm very, very sad and I'm traumatized. But it's the closest a movie could get to that line without crossing it, I think.
All right. You're made of stone, man. You're made of stone.
I just like watching children die.
I know. And you love starvation. I know.
I
You
love
all of those
starvation.
things and the radiation, the whole thing. I knew that would sell you on it. Again,
More
never-
like Rave of the Fireflies because it makes me feel like dancing.
There's a special place for people who feel that way about this movie. I find it hard to believe that it's going to get more traumatizing from here now that I realize like I'm thinking of this movie and I feel very sad. So let's move on to more devastating or equally or more devastating movies. Brennan, at your number 3, give it to us.
Okay, so I knew on this list I wanted to have a horror short film of some import. Because I think the things that are the scariest in horror are the shortest things. Like in terms of usually the trailer for a horror movie is scarier than the movie itself. And short horror films built around like a single scare are really potent. And the one that I wanted to highlight was the 2008 short Mamá, directed by Andy Muschietti. It was later adapted into a mediocre Jessica Chastain horror movie called Mamá. But it's a short. There's different cuts, but it's between 3 and 6 minutes. It's a single shot. You're tracking these 2 sisters. One of them's asleep. And the other one, you see her kind of blurry in the background at first, backing into the room and falling over and being like, "We gotta go. Mom's home." And so basically you're following them attempting to sneak out of the house. And there is an uncanny mother figure who is not right, who is present in the house that they're trying to escape.
Okay.
It is very much a dodgy 2008 CGI monster, but that was early enough in the time that that's something that I hadn't seen quite 1.5 million of yet. And the way that it's shot. Again, it's a single shot horror film, so you are trapped. Like, you know that where the camera is looking, it is never going to look away, and you have to just sit there and watch what the fuck is going to happen next. And I think it is an incredibly effective and chilling short.
All right.
I don't think I was aware that as you say, mediocre Jessica Chastain movie. I don't think I realized that was an expansion of a short. I might check this out directly following this recording.
Yeah, I think you should. It is,
or maybe I'll wait till it's dark
brief.
because right now it's the middle of the day. So maybe I should just hang out for like a couple hours, 10 hours or so. But I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I don't know they would have the potency from a 2023 perspective, but I would love to find out.
So I don't disagree with you that a lot of times just the short, punchy version of the thing is better than the like let's expand it to a feature. I'm trying to think, what was the recently there was that movie that was about like a haunted app or like a haunted
Countdown?
iPad. No.
Dark Web.
I'll have to look it up. The short it was expanded from, I believe, was called Larry, but I don't think the feature was called Larry.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I've seen this.
Yes, you and Rob. I think
my
you actually
gosh.
might have interviewed the one of the stars or something.
Larry. And he's like a monster that sits in like a vestibule.
Yeah,
Yes.
the short's fucking phenomenal.
Amazing.
The feature's fine.
Is it Dark and the Wicked? Or no, it's oh shoot. Come Play. It's called Come Play.
Come Play.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
The short that Come Play is expanded from. Terrific short. So I completely agree with the principle. The other one, the Light Switch one,
Lights Out.
Lights
Yes.
Out, also based on a short that's substantially better than the feature. So
That was
I'm
one
very
I
much
was
sold.
considering.
I'm very much sold on the idea. So I'll definitely be checking out Mama in the near future. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome. And I would say the one time that I think the feature expansion has been better than the short is the movie Smile that just came out last year. I watched the short and it's fine.
But Smile, I think,
I
was
was
pretty
also
good.
not aware that was a short.
All right.
Yeah, the original short was called Laura Hasn't Slept, which is a great title.
That's the title.
But it's a completely it's kind of in the same universe, but just not. It's a little too up its own ass.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, we've both been able to pull out something that we're going to watch from each other's trauma following this so far. So, Brennan, you're going to have to decide what you're going to watch out of ours respective ones by the end. But
Okay.
Tim, your number 3. What do you have?
So my number 3 gets us firmly into childhood traumas that I have fully surmounted at this point, and part of the pleasure to me of this movie, a movie that I love a ton, and I know I'm not the only person on this podcast who loves this movie, is that what did when I was very young, when I first saw this movie, I was probably 5 or 6 years old, freaked me out so bad that I wanted to go watch it again immediately. I think this is the movie I checked out the most times from the library because I was like, I can't wait to watch that scene with the snakes again.
Oh.
And I can't wait to watch that scene where the guy's face melts off again because it freaked me out so hard, but in such a pleasurable way. And that's part of why Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my 2 or 3 favorite movies of all time.
Oh my gosh. This is hilarious that this is traumatic for you. But at 6, your parents let you watch the face melting off and the snakes at age 6.
They knew it would give me the exact perfect mixture of I am fucked up, but I'm also really into this.
Yeah, and it did.
And I think a lot of my personality goes back to when I was a very small child being like, I want to watch that movie over and over and over again, partially as an exposure therapy thing, partially like the more times that I saw the snake scene and the more time I saw the face melting, the less it bothered me, partially because they were really cool because they were snakes and they were a dude's face melting off. And I think that's, I think a sign of why movies have to work really hard to traumatize me is because when I see things that really upset me, my immediate instinct is, well, that was cool.
Yeah.
Like I feel very awful about it, but it was cool. And this is my response to a lot of things. But no, Raiders, again, one of my favorite movies. Top 5 favorite for sure. Top 2 favorite, probably. And am I traumatized by it now? No, of course not. And have I been traumatized by it at any point since I turned like 8? No, not really.
Just those first couple of years, those first 20 times that you watched
this first year or two when I was just like really enjoying the like horrible feeling of watching those images. And here we are.
Do you have a concept? And I'm asking this actually because I feel like we've been watching some content with our kids lately that I feel not good about, but they're so into it and they love it so much that it's like, it's hard to say no. You know, like it's like, I want to get out. I don't want to do it. We've already gone too far, but now it's like a thing. Like they want to watch more of it because they're so into it. And they say that they sort of like recognize, as I'm doing, of course, my mom commentary throughout the whole show about like, that's not real. That really wouldn't happen. We're like, I'm telling them all these things. They're like, we know, we're good. Do you feel like 6-year-old Tim had a recognition when the guy opens the ark and his whole body starts to melt that it was fake? Or did you on that, like the first few times, did you feel like that was real or could happen?
I don't remember.
Oh,
honestly, that is asking me to like return to my innocence far too much.
It's so intense, and we've been watching, like I said, some intense stuff, and they just seem completely unfazed by it. And I can't tell if it's like a good or bad thing then, because it's like, oh, they can recognize it's not real and whatever.
I mean,
I don't know.
Abby is certainly old enough that she should be more than capable of recognizing that movies are fake.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But like we're watching like Stranger Things right now, and I'm like, these were like douchebags.
Here's what you want to do: like throw on Cannibal Holocaust and see how they respond to that.
Okay,
and that'll be your tell.
That'll be my gauge. Okay, that sounds good.
Because that's also a mixture of fake and not fake.
Okay,
so
I guess you could say the same of Stranger Things. It's a little bit a mix of both. So
I don't think a sea turtle is not butchered on camera live in Stranger Things that I'm aware of.
No,
I'm aware of.
I only saw season 1, but it didn't happen in season 1.
Okay.
But Carrie, I think Stranger Things, because of the way that it's evoking the 80s, it is doing the thing that I do think 80s family films did have the right idea, because they got to be a little fucked up, just a little,
just a hair. Yeah.
I mean, that's the Amblin thing, right? Like you have to have at least one fucking super scary scene in every movie that Steven Spielberg's name is slapped on.
Yeah, and for me, that Tim moment was in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the boat scene,
the worm. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, but it's just like I think having that little pepper in a movie, it helps train you to learn how to deal with the world.
That's true. Well, we were watching Bob's intestines get eaten out in season 2. And And they were like, don't look. And Alice used a really big word. I mean, she's only 8. She was like, I think he's being consumed by the monster. And she's like, tell me when it's over. And I could see him kind of like peeking through their fingers. I'm like, don't look. Like, don't look.
It's cool. It's fun.
I know. But I'm just like, I just feel like it's such a gray area for a mom moment. Like, what? We're watching Sam Ganges get eaten alive. And I'm just like, and they're all in. And I don't know. I was more sheltered when I was a kid. So.
No, by Abby's age, I was absolutely hunting out gore films.
She for sure is too. Yeah, she likes all of this stuff. She's all in on it. She's cooler than I was. But speaking of gore films, my next number 3 is all about the gore. And oh gosh,
an inconvenient truth.
This is. How did you know? Yeah, I knew you were peeking. This one, I'd like to say that I was younger when I saw it, but I believe I was around 16 or so. So when I was in middle school, my 2 best friends and I all had a crush on the same guy. And we used to like write in a little notebook about him back and forth. We'll call him Ed because his name is Ed. And actually, I think he actually listens to this show, which makes it more awkward. So hi, Ed. We did have a crush on you when we were in middle school. Maybe he'll remember this. But anyway, as we got older, maybe we're 15 or 16, Ed asks one of my friends to go to a movie. Like weirdos, not me. No, I was never asked. I was always like the 3rd or 4th or 5th wheel. So my other friend gets jealous and she's like, you can only go to this movie if we can come with you. If Carrie and I can come with you. How weird is this? Like looking back on it, how weird is this? Why she said yes?
I think asking a high school boy to have 3 different girls come with him at the same time is really just putting way too much pressure on his.
So much pressure on Ed. I know, right? He was just a nice guy. Anyway, why she invited us, I don't know. But now we're on this like 4-way date. And we go to see this movie. I have no idea what it's about. I'm just there for sitting 3 seats away from Ed. That's my game. So we pull into this movie. Opening scene comes out. I did not know what to expect. I don't know what's happening. All of a sudden, it comes upon me first like 20 minutes of the movie, and I have a panic attack in the movie theater. And this is Saving Private Ryan. Full on panic attack. I'm heaving. I'm sobbing. I'm on this 4-way date. My friends are now like leaning over, consoling me. The one that's on the date is like, are you okay? Do you need to go home? And I was like, I'm going to like push through. I'm going to push through this. Literally just like weeping and like a full on like when you have a panic attack, like heavy breathing in and out. Couldn't get my air, like kind of like choking. So then my friends are like around me. Poor Ed is just sitting there like, what the F is happening on this date that I'm on with these weirdos? It was the last date that they went on. I will share that.
Setting aside what you did to ruin this date for your poor friends and Ed, and no offense if Ed is a listener. I mean, certainly we all made choices when we were teenagers. Saving Private Ryan is a terrible date movie.
Oh, right.
It's a terrible date movie.
Terrible date movie. I don't think any of us knew. I mean, we're 15, 16. I don't know what we're at, but it's like, it was young enough that we're just like, it was probably the right time or whatever. I didn't realize it was war. As those intestines are popping out left and right. I mean, my eyes are just like, what the H is happening right now? People just, main characters dying left and right. I already had a major crush at this point on Good Will Hunting, on
Matt Damon.
Huge crush there. I'm like on full alert of like, if anything happens to this man that I'm going to marry someday, like what am I going to do? Because if it didn't work out with Ed, I was going to end up with Matt Damon. I had a whole plan all together. And it was like the Tom Hanks. I was just like one of my favorite actors at the time. Also, I was completely flooded, like emotionally flooded, and I freaked out. And it was really embarrassing because I couldn't come back from it. That was the other part. Like I couldn't regroup. And it was like,
no, the movie's designed to do that to you. Like the movie's designed to like just keep tightening you up until you get literally to like the credits scroll.
Yeah. Exactly. And it did do just that. I like blacked out somewhere after that. I hardly remember the rest of the movie, and I've never watched it again since. So this meets my also criteria of like, I will never do that again, because it was, gosh, just pure devastation. And I think it would be for me today. I don't think I would be like, I'm not hardened by movies.
I assume
just
not
yet.
the same reasons, but no, it is a wildly unpleasant film, and that's its goal.
Yeah. Not on your lists though.
I mean,
No.
After that amazing opening 30 minutes, it then spends the next 2 hours very languidly being boring. So that kind of deflates the trauma for me.
That's true.
No, that's fair. And I did consider putting a movie on this list that was a bad first date. Because my ex did take me to see Mikkel Haneke's Amor in theaters when we first started dating.
Oh no.
Which, Carrie, is about an elderly couple, and one of them develops extreme dementia. And it is not a good date movie.
No.
It is part of the noble Italian or European genre of let's watch old people die, and is one of the most upsetting of them.
Good times. I'm glad that didn't work out, Brennan. I'm glad it didn't work out. Clearly he had terrible taste in date movies. So oh gosh, I'm gonna have to take a break. I'm feeling very warm thinking about this, and frankly still thinking the fact that Ed might be listening to this, and now that he knows my secrets. But nevertheless, before we head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. You can get early access by joining Patreon, exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more. Just like James Kim, who picked up our Emmy Award level, entitling him to exclusive access to TV reviews, early access to other reviews, this podcast shout out, and more. Also want to thank all of our patrons who are celebrating their anniversaries with us this month. There is a bunch of you, and we appreciate that so much. We have Julia Eastwood, Brian Malbinator, Scott Dietrich, Garth Snyder, Brendan McAllister, Haley, Mark McComas, Margaret Duran, David Aguillo, Donald Cooper, Callum Hemphill, Rachel Ann, Jason Dola, Nathan Tabak, Philip Weiss, Marion Kensler, Dan Prestwich, Stevie T, Carter Smith, MC Stefan, and Chris and Laura Trengrove. Holy smokes. I think I pronounced everyone correctly.
All.
Yes, thank you so much. Also, this month, Brennan doesn't know it yet, but we are going to see if he can conjure up some movie trivia for our next movie club meetup.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Just so you know, I'm throwing it out to you right now. Maybe I'll catch up with you after this, but
I'll write that on my to-do list.
Put that on your notes. I've been missing it. So thank you all so much. Also, you can also support us via our Patreon site on our alternateending.com and our Amazon banner as well by making your purchases through that. When we get back, our number 1 and 2 picks for our most traumatic movies. And welcome back. We're here with our number 1 and number 2 picks for the most traumatic movies, and they're going to get real traumatic here. My number 2 is probably going to make you all very uncomfortable and want to end the show, but we will get there. First, Brennan, we're going to throw it to you for your number 2 pick.
Okay, this is my full-on disease horror slot. Because like I said, I am a bit of a hypochondriac in the sense of I don't know that I'm your traditional hypochondriac of like how they are presented on the screen, where it's like I'm not convinced I have every disease, but I'm just afraid of horrible medical situations at all times, just as a general fear out in the world.
Yes, like it could happen to you, kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But this movie is a 2014 Ryan Murphy production, The Normal Heart.
I'm already traumatized just hearing that name.
I know. And I would say the good things about it have little to nothing to do with Ryan Murphy himself, who did direct it. But yes, it's called The Normal Heart. It's based on Larry Kramer's 1985 play of the same name. And it's a dramatization of the AIDS epidemic in the U.S. And Mark Ruffalo plays a reporter and activist who is, trying to help solve the problem of gay men around the country and around the world, but this is pretty US focused, dying of this disease that is very poorly understood, while the people with power are just sitting there with their fingers in the ears going, la, 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 this is happening to gay people, so we don't really care. Which is so this was my first direct exposure to the story of the AIDS epidemic in the US and how it affected the LGBTQ community in such a profound way. Like there's a reason that there aren't any, there's not a wealth of older gay mentors out there, and that's because so many people died during the course of this. So it does have that kind of traumatizing aspect of sadness, but I did pick it because it is a medical horror film. It is this thing about there's this creeping, encroaching, inevitable doom that is happening, and there are people who can help and they're not, and so it is that sense of
frustration,
inevitability, and being trapped, and also a thing that actually happened in a thing that affects a community that I'm a part of, in a way that is both profound and very, very, it's a very, very recent history.
Yeah, that's the other
the
thing.
1980s.
It's 80s. Yeah, it's not a long time ago, and the rhetoric at the time. Like I haven't seen this one. Can you say the title of it one more time?
The Normal Heart.
The Normal Heart. I mean, and I've seen other ones that have depicted storylines around that same time frame too, and it's just always there's such a level of anger because, to your point, they weren't doing anything about it for so long, while so many people were just getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and it was just like, it is scary. It was like scary on top of it, but it was the inaction too that is even more like scary and frustrating as you're trying to watch movies like that.
Yeah. So no, it was just really challenging, and that's something that has a deeply personal connection to myself and the history of people in the US that I am tied to in some small way. But yeah, it's not a perfect movie. Obviously, Ryan Murphy's in charge. But it is a movie where he largely steps back and lets a very stacked cast commune with the work of Larry Kramer, who did adapt his own work for the screenplay. And I think that it's tremendously effective as kind of blunt force instrument of historical drama.
I'm curious, have you seen the documentary How to Survive a Plague?
No, I haven't.
It is probably, favorite is not the word to use, but it is probably my favorite piece of media about the AIDS epidemic. It's a documentary from a few years ago, 2016, maybe 2017, somewhere around there. That's just this remarkably gutting just discussion of like what it was like to be part of the culture at that time, sort of gay culture. Great documentary. Upsetting as hell, obviously, but I'm really worth it.
I mean, I'm sure it is. I mean, I've seen there's only so much AIDS stuff I can do.
Yeah.
But that also, there's another, I mean, since we're on the topic, there's a documentary, what's it called? I think it's called Life and Death on the A-List. Yes. It is a short documentary about Tom McBride, who played the sexy dude in the wheelchair in Friday the 13th Part 2. Mm-hmm. But he was a gay man, and it's basically, the documentary starts off as just following what it's like to be a handsome gay man in the 90s, but it ends up just being about his slow death from AIDS, and it is harrowing.
Also devastating, though, at the same time. Is this one, though, that you were talking about, is it, I mean, obviously it's sad, but is the trauma, do you think it comes more from just sort of like the whole like magnitude of it, or does it hone in on a specific story that you tie to that you're like, oh, it's so tragic because I'm connected to these characters, or is it more like the bigger picture of it all?
Well, it does do both. Basically, there is kind of a ticking clock element because Mark Ruffalo's partner is a character played by Matt Bomer who develops HIV symptoms, and they're basically like, we're trying to solve what's going on here before he dies. So there is that kind of like more personal element there. But for me, it's the thing that impacts me so much is the kind of overarching, the way it's affecting the collective community.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of cover both.
Okay. Gosh, I'm gonna be going out to our website after this, referencing this episode and increasing my watch list. I feel you guys have some really good traumatic choices for us all today. So, Tim, it is not on your list, I know. So, at your number 2, go ahead and steal my number 1.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
I don't know.
I just keep guessing.
The one that I thought you were going to have, you didn't. I thought you might have Raiders.
Raiders? That's not traumatic.
Well, we all define trauma in different ways. I am, however, going to name the third Steven Spielberg film we have named thus far in this episode, because Steven Spielberg, he's good at manipulating your emotions. He's good at making you feel feelings, and feeling feelings is traumatic.
I know what you have.
Is my belief. This is a movie that I'm told when I saw it during its 1984, I believe, maybe 1985 re-release, one of the earlier movies I saw in my lifetime. I do not have firsthand memory of this. I am told that I just cried. I started crying, and I was carried out of the theater crying, and I cried on the way home. And I believe there was a choice made to buy me a small doll based on the title character of this movie to make me stop crying, to be like, no, see, he's okay. And to this very day, if I have some need of crying, I'm pent up in some way, and I just need to make sure that I can juice the old tear ducts a little bit and get some of that out of there. All I need to do, I don't even need to watch all of E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. I really just need to watch the last 6 or 7 minutes of it, and I'm going.
But he lives. He makes it. There's nothing sad.
It's sad because he can't be Elliot's friend anymore.
Oh, that's fine. Elliot was kind of weird anyway.
This is twice now that you're doing this to me, Carrie.
I always forget how I've described my dislike for this movie to you, though. So it's I'll find new ways to share that with you. Fair
enough. So. No, this is just a movie. Obviously it's one of my favorites at this point. A lot of these movies are among my favorites, but I definitely get real sad, and I've always gotten real sad from a very young age. And like I said, I was literally non-ambulatory. I was crying so hard when this movie was done. So I'm gonna take that to mean something powerful. But yeah, the fact that it is one of my two go-to I Need to Cry movies, and unlike Toy Story 3, my other I Need to Cry movie, where I do need to sort of watch half an hour of it to get it, I literally need to watch such a small portion of E.T. to get that going. So there you go.
This is a hilarious way to process your emotions. I don't think I've ever been what can I watch to have a good cry? What could I use to release my emotions? It's right now you could tell me just a brief story and I could get going.
Remember how Kate Winslet meets Leo DiCaprio in Titanic Heaven?
I can tell you're getting mad. I can tell he's getting mad because I've been picking on E.T. and now he's coming back.
E.T.'s such an important movie to me.
It is important. I guess I was so traumatized, but for a different way. I was just so mad.
I will also say when we went to the 40th anniversary release, my boyfriend kindly saw it with me on IMAX, and I'm sobbing at the end of it, and he's fine. And he's like, I guess maybe you needed to have been born in the early 80s. And I was like, oh, fuck you. I don't even give a shit.
I guess is that really old to appreciate this. Oh, that's so funny. I could totally see him saying that too, trying to meet you where you are, but just too far away. No.
Yeah. What goes on?
When he turned into the dog turd again, I remember just being like, why is he white? It
might actually be the dog turd is what got me crying when I was 3. Now it's the farewell scene.
The farewell. Yeah. I remember being so mad at my parents, and my parents still to this day bring it up about how could you not like that movie? My parents are that was not traumatizing. And I've rewatched it as an adult now and been nope, still the same. It is traumatizing, but I guess just for a different reason for me. So good pick.
You don't think that it's a good pick?
I know, but I was trying to be nice because I
it's
feel
a bad pick.
I know, but I feel bad about it. So
it's interesting. There are certain traumas that just make you upset that they have happened, and then there are certain ones that linger with you in a positive way, like the ones that are on your list. And I'm trying to find where the knife's edge between those two things are, and I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're absolutely right. That's what it is. And again, the ones that stick out. And this next one for me is my one non-sad trauma. This is my want to peel my skin off and unzip myself and then leave the skin there in where I was sitting and just leave the space forever.
I don't know about the movie, but the description you're giving right now is traumatizing me in real time. So
it is. I wasn't successful in doing this, but here's what happened. So it's my parents. They're meeting Rob's parents for the first time. We drove all the way out to Colorado, and his parents have a very minimalist style when they lived there. So one couch in one big area or one space. It was just kind of sparse. So we get there. It's already uncomfortable. My dad is really uncomfortable. I've talked about this before, but like pretty much all types of content, he's uncomfortable watching with other people, because if there's any sense that something could get awkward or weird, or like if there's language or like even a touch of nudity, he's gone. Like if we're at home, he's gone. So anyway, we end up, his parents invite us to watch a movie. We go down to the basement. There's only one couch for all of us. So there's like 6 of us. So now we have 6 large people like pressed up, elbow, like shoulder to shoulder with each other on this one couch in front of this like 32-inch TV that's on the wall. Next to the wall, there's this picture of this like naked mermaid. I don't even know why this naked mermaid's on the wall, but I can tell already just by being in this close proximity and with the naked mermaid on the wall, my dad is already just like, get me out of here. Like, I just know he's like, how can I leave? Can I fake an injury? Like, what do I got to do? But he was like pushing through, and I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, like, please just hold it together. So we're all sitting on the couch, like shoulder to shoulder, and Rob throws on this movie, and I was like, oh, thank God, it's like a fishing movie. Like, oh, this is great. It's like there are people out on a boat, they're fishing. My dad loves fishing, so I'm like, this is gonna be really good. So there's people floating on a boat, and then all of a sudden it just like blips and it clips over, and all of a sudden 2 people are in bed, and all of a sudden I just start to see a boob, and I was like, oh God, like the first 3 minutes of the movie, there's a boob, and I was like, please, please, please pull the sheets back over. Like, let's just, hopefully it was just a flash of a boob. And it was like, nope, there's a butt crack. So now I've seen a butt crack and a boob. And then it was like, if this can get any worse, no one's commenting. It falls completely silent. Like, no one's laughing. No one's commenting on the boob. No one's commenting on anything. We're all just like sitting there like small children, like lined up, like on a church bench watching this movie. And I was like, have it be over. Like, just have it be over. And I was like, then all of a sudden it was like the guy like flips over. This like sex scene continues. The guy flips over. There's a penis like right there.
Did Rob put on a porno?
No. So this is 2003's Open Water. Open Water.
Oh my God.
Based on the true story of 2 scuba divers who accidentally get stranded in shark-infested waters. But then it like even gets worse. Like that whole scene ends up, it probably was like 2 minutes. It felt like a billion years that this sex scene's happening. I'm sweating now. Again, my dad's starting to do the like shifting his like knees a little bit. Like he doesn't know these people well enough to just like leave the situation, but he desperately wants to, and no one's laughing. No one's saying anything.
Well, it's because it's not funny. Why would you laugh?
I don't know, but like at least somebody could have like added a little bit of levity and been like, oh, like
nice tits, am I right?
That's a nice side boob. Like but no one did. And so it just kept getting like building tension. And then all I remember is like once it like got away from that scene, we thought it was over, but then they got into water, and when they were trying to get out of the water, the nudity just continued throughout the whole movie. And it was one of those where it was like nobody moved for the entire movie. There was all this nudity. Movie goes off, and then Rob's dad is just like, well, can I get anyone a drink? And my dad's like, yeah, I'll have a whiskey and Coke. Like it's like 1 p.m. I was like, I was so enraged with Rob. I'm like, did you not screen what this movie was about before we watched it? We just watched like a softcore porn with my parents sitting on the couch all together. He's like, sorry, I didn't know. I just thought like your dad would like the fishing element.
Yeah, Open Water, famously a movie about fishing.
I feel like this is American culture in a nutshell. That the movie about 2 people who die alone in a shark lagoon strikes you as being too much nudity.
Again, opening scene. I mean, I'm pretty shocked.
I love it. I love it.
I
didn't know there was a dick in that movie. I gotta watch it.
You know what? I may have written a dick in, like just because to like add to my trauma. It's hard to say at this point because I've never watched it again since.
Maybe they just kiss and you wrote it all in.
That could be. That actually could be. There was no boob either. No, there was for sure boobs. That's actually the one thing I know for sure. They were good ones, but that made it worse. Like if they were like droopy boobs or like they were like, I don't know, not great, but we were all probably like, like knowing that everybody around you was probably like, those nice boobs. Like that just added to the like horror of it. That like his dad was probably thinking that for sure. I mean, he's got a naked mermaid on the wall. Like this isn't a man who cares. He's not modest. But my dad, oh my gosh, my dad hasn't seen a boob in years, and it's like this is just.
Oh, your poor mom.
But I don't know. We don't talk about it. It's just horrifying.
I'm sure I must have at some point in all the years we've been doing this podcast talked about the time that I watched Eyes Wide Shut with my parents.
Oh my.
I haven't seen that one, so I don't know what would be bad about that.
Well, I think you should get the whole family together some Christmas. It's a Christmas movie.
Okay.
It's a Christmas movie. So you should watch it at Christmas with your family, your kids, Rob's parents, your parents.
Okay.
And then just remind yourself that I saw that movie with my parents.
All righty. I will. All on the same couch. We'll just huddle up and watch it. Although your parents are very...
No, they're not. I don't even know where you're taking this, but you're wrong.
I'm just going to say less modest. Yours are less modest than my dad, for sure.
My father is probably less modest than your dad. My mother is potentially not.
They're probably similar. We'll invite her over. We'll all do it together. We'll all watch it together. It'll be great.
I have such a different relationship with my parents. It's not that it's not American and twisted in some way, but we just kind of watch whatever. We're not watching porn, but we would watch Open Water and be like, oh, that was fine. Because I'm sure it is a fine movie. So I don't mind watching that kind of content with my parents. Obviously, we're not going like NC-17 or whatever, but if it's an R-rated movie that just happens to have... We're not watching Showgirls. But... in conversation with my parents, I have never even once hinted at the fact that I have maybe had sex.
Oh, of
absolutely
course not.
Absolutely
not.
No.
They don't need to know.
No.
It's my little secret.
Never. You would never, ever
I'm like,
talk about
I don't know what that is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Gosh, no. Yeah, I wouldn't. That would just never happen.
My father, when I was a junior in college, my father once, very, stage whispery, sort of like took me aside and handed me a package of condoms, and I wanted to cut my hand off and stick with it.
Oh gosh, you still have it, don't you? You still do.
Yeah, because that's what we know about condoms. They have infinite shelf life.
I don't actually know.
Try to roll it on and it just crumbles into dust like a mummy.
I literally just had this. My mom's actually much more open than I am. Like she would talk about things, and I just shut that down. But
she's a school teacher. She has to be pragmatic. She has to be. But we just had this conversation recently about like how hard it is to have those conversations with kids, and she was like, "Yeah, it wasn't so hard for me." I'm like, "It wasn't so hard for you. You never told us about anything." And she was like, "Oh, I sure did." That would have been not very hard then, wouldn't it?
Easy.
No. She was like, "Oh, I sure did." And I was like, "You surely didn't." I said, the only conversation I ever remember in my entire life that my like sex talk, I was like 5 years old, and my sister was getting it in like the front seat. So they were in the front seat.
Wow, that's not even a sex talk.
Wait, I don't know where you're going with this. My mom was telling her about some things, and I only heard the P word. So I was like, I hear
which one?
Pussy, obviously.
Penis.
No, she heard the penis.
Placenta.
She was like, the penis. So she says, I can't believe I even said that word out loud right now. So she says,
you said it earlier.
I know, you're right. Gosh, this is a wild episode. I'm gonna have to bleep all this out. Poor Ed.
Don't listen to this episode with Rob's parents.
No. Sometimes they do listen too. They're gonna remember this. So yeah, so she's telling her, I like vicariously heard the story, and she was like, "Oh," and I said, "I didn't hear anything else." And this is why when I got to college and I had to fill out a diagram of like where things were and what they were, I failed it. I got like,
why would you have to do that in college? What class was that?
It was like a relationships class. It was like a health and relationships. I was like a junior in college, and I got a few things wrong, and I didn't know where things were. I was like, because no one told me any of these things. I didn't know. Gosh. So anyway, I blame my parents, and this was a rabbit hole. So do you need a timeout? Are you running out of time?
I need to explain to you the joke.
Oh.
Because I want you to know what you said.
Oh, what did I say?
When I was 5 years old, my sister was getting it in the front seat.
Oh God. You're disgusting. You're disgusting. I could tell by the way you were laughing that I had missed what I had said.
I'm not okay. I'm not ready to go out of timeout yet.
I find that deeply disturbing. That is not what I meant. The speech.
I know it's not what you meant, but it's what you said.
The speech. She was getting the speech. Okay, compose yourself.
I'm working on it. Oh,
My face hurts. My face hurts. Okay, just take a couple deep breaths in, couple deep breaths out. You're going to make it. I promise not to say anything more the rest of this episode that will catch you off guard.
Make no promises you can't keep.
That's true. That's true. Are you ready to jump back in?
I am ready.
Okay. I don't know what I was saying before we left.
You were about to kick it to Brennan for his number one.
Okay. All right, Brennan. From there, I know it's a tough pivot. It's going to be tough to pivot out of that one, but we're going to head in to your number one most traumatic movie.
Yeah, my number one most traumatic movie. I put it as number one because it was a very positive trauma experience for me. This is one. It was a group of people, and we all kind of bonded over it. So I was in a class on horror cinema. We did a double feature of the Stuart Gordon films Reanimator and From Beyond. Now, I had seen Reanimator, love Reanimator, but then From Beyond comes on. So it is a glorious film. So it is Stuart Gordon's adaptation of the H.P. Lovecraft short story of the same name. Jeffrey Combs plays Dr. Crawford Tillinghast, who has worked with another doctor to develop a resonator that activates the pineal gland in your head. It's meant to kind of open up like a kind of third eye that allows you to see another dimension full of monsters. But of course, once you can see them, they can see you. But also using the resonator is kind of addictive, and it kind of turns people into creatures of id. Like Barbara Crampton plays a character who becomes exposed to the resonator and starts exploring like a leather S&M side of herself. But anyway, there is a scene where after his pineal gland has become stimulated too much, it begins to extrude from the center of his forehead. So it's just this kind of like wiggly eyeball on a stalk that's coming out of a glistening hole in the middle of Jeffrey Combs' forehead.
Dick. It's a straight up forehead dick.
Oh.
Yeah. But watching that emerge in the kind of slithery, glistening, gooey 1980s Stuart Gordon special effects in a theater full of rapt, jaw-dropped students, all between like the ages of 19 and 22. It was a moment I'll never forget. It was wild.
I mean, obviously, if the context is this is a horror cinema class, that changes the expectations. I would have to think a long time about showing that movie to a class of 22-year-olds. I think 22-year-olds have gotten a bit more fragile than they were when you were 22. But I think my students would rebel if I tried to show them From Beyond.
Really? Oh, that's too bad. It's such a good movie.
It's such a good movie.
But especially because, yes, this was a horror class, but we were kind of going chronologically. So we had seen, we saw the Hammer, Dracula, and Frankenstein, they're lurid, but they're not that. They're not Stuart Gordon.
They're lurid in the sense of like, oh my, these ladies sure have very tight tops.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you
so
think
that's
it's
kind
terrible how they're being menaced but in their tight tops? Right.
And that was kind of what laid the groundwork. That was like, the unit before, and now we're watching From Beyond. And so it still had some of that. It's a potent and shocking
it's
film.
potent and shocking. I don't think you can have seen any number of films really and be ready for it. It's intense. I mean, I first saw that movie when I was certainly older than 22, probably in my 30s sometime. It's a fucked up movie. It's a real fuck you up sort of film.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, high recommend.
You should do a double feature of that once you guys are done watching Eyes Wide Shut, Carrie. You should check out From Beyond.
I'm adding it to that watch list right now.
It's not a Christmas movie though, so maybe save that one for New Year's.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna spread out the trauma throughout the year, starting with 7 today. Tim.
Yes.
It's your number one.
It's my number one.
And what's it gonna be? Let's see if I can guess.
What is the quintessential trauma trigger in all of cinema?
Oh, for you or for all of cinema?
For humanity. What is the
boy.
thing that we talk about when we talk about people being traumatized as children by a movie?
Oh, I know what your movie is.
We talk about Disney
Animal
parents.
death. Yeah, animal death.
And mine is not dead.
I thought they did die.
Which actually, no, in the particular one I'm picking for my number one, his mother does not die. And that's, to me, part of what makes it even harder to deal with. It's the scene in Dumbo when his mom's in a cage and he goes up to the cage and she sticks her trunk through the cage and he sits in her trunk and she rocks him while they're sad because she's in a cage and he doesn't know if she's ever going to get out of that cage. And all the love in the world to Bambi, which is a better film than Dumbo, and has that just harrowing moment where his mother dies off camera and we're just like stuck with it and then just kind of like it's a matter-of-fact horrible thing. The Dumbo moment I think is really just pushing so much harder to make you weep.
Yeah.
And this I was a wreck anytime I tried to watch Dumbo as a child. Again, got over it to a certain extent, although this is certainly in that E.T. Toy Story, and weirdly Brief Encounter is the other one of the four movies that I can always sort of rely on to and Brief Encounter is a very different sort of sad, but those are the four movies I can always rely on. I know I will at least sort of my eyes will get wet talking about these movies. And I mean, I had to put a Disney film as my number one.
Yes.
I just had to.
I kind of thought maybe Bambi, but I did remember you saying that Dumbo was traumatizing for you multiple times, and that scene. And I agree. It's so heart tugging. I don't know for me if I would call it traumatizing, but it's definitely heart tugging of that.
Well, it was traumatizing when I was 4.
Oh, sure. And I probably saw it at 23 or so.
Now it's just sad.
Yeah, and you're right. There is something about the fact that the mother is alive, where it is this tragic situation can just keep going and going and going, and you don't know.
Right,
when
it's the sort of thing like when you aren't sure if someone's dead, and then you find out that they for sure are. There's that moment of okay, now we can go into the healing process. I have the closure now. I can do it. There's no closure here, right? It's just his mother's in prison, and he can't be with her, as opposed to this is now a situation he can grow from.
I can see your eyes welling a bit.
Well, a little bit. I'm chewing my thumbnail right now, so I'm not sure.
You bit a cuticle.
I think you're being disingenuous, but
bit a cuticle. I think something is interesting about Dumbo's design or art design. There was always something about Dumbo's eyes that always made me sad. There was such an element to the way that they were drawn, where they were shaped in a way that just had this expression of just sort of this pure innocence and this pure hopefulness, but also innocence, and the idea that he had no idea that how he was getting treated, that he was getting bullied and getting asked to do all these things. He was just so, I don't know, just seems so innocent in that way. And I just always I don't know, it was hard for me to watch.
Absolutely. And Dumbo was the last important character animated at Disney by Bill Titla, who was probably the single most talented animator alive at that point in time.
Yeah. Huh.
So definitely high quality character for sure. And that of course helps with this film as well.
Will not dispute that pick. I think that is a good one. And I think that'll wrap her up. I think we've gotten through them all.
What's your number?
I think we need to hear about the other time that you accidentally walked in on your parents having sex.
Oh, that's never happened. There's never happened.
E.T. was on in the background.
The closest I ever came to that was one time I found a sock at the foot of the bed, and I was like, has something been going on in here? Why is there a sock at the foot of the bed?
I mean, there's probably a sock at the foot of my bed right now, and that has nothing.
There was probably some weird things going on there. You never know.
I regret to say, I just am untidy.
Unfortunately, no. So I don't think it's a shock. I wanted to have something clever and fun for my number one, but at the same time, you also have to be honest on this show. And so without honesty, there is nothing. And so, of course, at my number one, it's my PTSD pick. It's one in which I still struggle with and have obviously already cried previously on this episode talking about it. This is, 96?
97.
97. Obviously my favorite movie because I remember the year. This is Titanic. So
yeah.
I, when we were in Las Vegas in our excellent trip that I was mentioning earlier, we were wandering through the Venetian because I was trying to find all ways not to spend money. I was so overwhelmed with how expensive everything was. So I was like, we're just going to walk. Like, we're just going to walk around all of these stores and like look at things for hours. So we were in the Venetian. We're standing there just like kind of window browsing. And again, this is why I know it's PTSD. Like in the distance, there's these like gondolas where like gondola riders are going through. All of a sudden, I just hear this faint like, do 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 do, and I was like, ah! Like I'm like look around, and I'm like, what's happening? Like what is happening? Like this is the worst vacation. Like what's happening? I look around. There's a woman like in the distance singing "My Heart Will Go On," like opera style, like on this pedestal over there. And like my first reaction was just like, it was like like cover your ears. So I'm like, no, like, don't do this to me. So she's like, I just can't like shut it out. Like she's right there. She starts to like build. It's very Celine Dion. And I was just like, my kids are like, what are you doing? Like, and so I was like, I just can't listen to this song, which they now know it's a thing. So they think it's hilarious. So they're like pulling my hands away from my ears like giant weirdos. I mean, I'm sure it's like a spectacle. This mom looks like she's like having a seizure in the corner. Trying not to listen to the song because I didn't want to cry in the middle of the Venetian.
If your children are as cruel as I am, you are going to hear them just like walking through the room, like playing it.
Yeah.
At all hours.
This is who they are to the core. They're cruel children. So did end up having a good little cry in the Venetian like we all do. And then it stuck with me for at least a few hours. I still get that like pit of the stomach, like, oh, I feel bad feeling. And it's been, I don't know, what is it, 20 some years? I don't even know since I've seen it.
25 years ago 25. This month. It was still number 2 at the box office, I think.
So still sticks with me. Still, again, true grief. That was the one where I was like, this is grief. This is what it is. And now I know it forever. So that's my number 1, Titanic. Oh. I won't be watching that later. Like I will be yours. Aww. So
it's so anyway, good. It's so good.
I know that's what Rob keeps saying, but I don't.
I feel like you are robbing your children of the ability to watch Titanic, and that is something that you need to reevaluate.
I know, but I also don't want them to watch it without me. So it's just a catch-22. It's just a catch-22. But we'll see. Someday maybe I will. Want to throw it to our winner this week, who is DCHB. This is a little story that goes with it, which is cute. I still remember when I was 2 and went to see Beauty and the Beast, which was the first time I remember going into a movie theater. I don't know if it was the new experience of going into a dark room with lots of people or the movie itself, but we had to go multiple times because I'd run out crying. For more concrete trauma, while I loved the Muppet Christmas Carol as much as I do now, we always had to fast forward past the Marley portions when I was very young because they freaked me out. Same.
Fascinating that you can get through the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, but not the Marley portions, because the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is scary in that movie.
Yeah, just different types of trauma. I don't know. That one, that movie freaked me out actually a lot too. And Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit subliminally terrified me. I had nightmares of seeing his true eyes on inanimate objects. And while I don't know if it's trauma per se, Tim, this is one's going to get you. The Land Before Time is the first time I recall feeling genuine heartbreak over a movie. Could not agree more. That's devastating. Yeah. So DCHV, shoot us an email at contact@alternateending.com to claim your free Amazon movie rental. In closing, thank you for joining us through our dramatic stories of trauma, childhood, and all of the horrors of being married to Rob. Go out there to our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and like it. Go to alternateending.com where you can catch all of our reviews and more. And don't forget about Patreon. We'll catch you next time.